Welcome everyone to the Unboxing Careers podcast, where we shed light on what different careers are really like so that you can choose a career you will really love. Today we are diving back into the education field with Dr. Kristine Pearl of the Frederick County Public School System. But before we do, let's talk briefly about unboxing thoughtful gifts. At thoughtfulcollection.com, you can shop from a wide selection of curated products you can feel good about, helping you express friendship, gratitude, and love. The next time you need to, don't just gift, give thoughtfully at thoughtfulcollection.com.
Where do I go? How do I know what I should do? Unboxing career.
All right, I'd like to welcome to the show Dr. Kristine Pearl, Supervisor of Career Technology Education for Frederick County Public Schools. Kristine, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Always love getting different careers in here. And what fascinates me about this, and we'll have this conversation, is you go into education and typical rule or typical thought is, I'm going to be a teacher, right? And there's so many jobs and so many applications beyond just teaching for education, both higher ed and down to elementary. So I'm excited to have you here to talk about some of those things. But let's start with this. Let's do a little level setting. So tell the audience a little bit about what the Career and Technology Education program is.
Okay, outstanding. So career and technical education is actually something that is in some ways federally regulated because the majority of the school systems utilize federal Perkins funding. So the definition of career and technical education is a series of courses that culminate in either an industry certification or college credit that prepare students for a specific career. So it starts very general and then narrows the focus. And the idea is that when our students graduate, they have some options. They, in some cases, can go directly to the workforce, depending on the career focus area and the industry certifications that they earned. And in some cases, they're more prepared to go on to higher ed within that particular pathway. So that's kind of CTE in a nutshell.
Okay. And I was saying technology education. Was that, this might be my bad, was that a mistype on which I'm known for, but is that a mistype?
So we have a Career and Technology Center, which is a building that houses career and technical education.
Okay.
So
very
career
good.
and technical education is the big umbrella, and career and technology is, in our case anyway, it's actually the physical school or one of the schools that houses.
All right. I said, we got a whole podcast to go. I got to be calling it the right thing here. So
there you go.
So this sounds exciting. I was on the website earlier today, kind of poking around a couple of the links on there. And it sounds very in tune, kind of what this is, right? So students are going to get kind of a real life look at what a career is going to be like, right? And then they'll have their disciplines on there. So I got a question for you. How'd you navigate to this role? So give us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got your career path to where you are.
Okay. And, we always tell kids today that your career path, it kind of is a winding road, that you don't necessarily end up where you begin. And that's definitely the case for me. When I went to college, I originally majored in mass communications, public relations, and I started there and I did that for a good number of years. And then I was an at-home mom for quite a while and helped run a family business. And then I was volunteering in the schools so much that I realized this was my calling. This was my passion. And so from there, I contacted a few folks and said, look at my transcripts and tell me what I need. Because I already had an undergrad degree in public relations, and I had an MBA because of running the business that I was running. And it turned out that I only needed to take a few courses to get my certification in business ed because of the MBA, and ended up then going back and getting certification in technology education. And you know what? I loved it. I taught at the middle school level first, and then I was recruited kind of to the high school level and taught there for a number of years, where it was my thing. When you feel like you're really making a difference in kids' lives, and they would come back afterwards and say, oh, I'm sorry, I was such a pain in the butt in school, but I really learned a lot from you. And most of the time it was just maturity. Students, they didn't know, what their passion was. They hadn't figured it out. And I just loved being part of that experience, guiding them and helping them find their strengths, what they were good at, and, maybe a future career path. So from there, an opportunity opened up at central office, and it's been 16 years since
Wow.
I came here, first as a curriculum specialist and then as curriculum supervisor. And boy, has CTE changed over that time frame.
So,
Go ahead.
oh yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, back in the day, it was more vocational education, right? When you think of CTE, it was all, I'm going to be a construction worker. I'm going to be an auto mechanic. I'm going to be, something that you immediately got your certification and went on, and you were kind of set for life. And now, really, all fields require some sort of post-secondary education because we're always learning, we're always evolving as a country. But it also has expanded to include computer science, Cisco, and all kinds of amazing technology work the students are doing, engineering. So what's exciting to me is really we have a program to cover almost every type of pathway you can imagine. So it's changed. The perceptions are still changing, but we do feel as though all of our programs of study lead students to high wage, in demand, high skilled careers, whether they choose to go directly to post-secondary education or they go to the workforce or they eventually go back to post-secondary. The goal is to be self-sustaining and to help our students really find careers that they love and that they can be good at.
Great background. So I have a question for you. When you made the transition from PR back into the workforce, went to get education, was the plan all along to be a teacher, or was the plan to eventually get into more of the business side of the academics?
That's a really good question. And actually, initially, it was to be a teacher. And then I just took advantage of a lot of different leadership opportunities to pilot new courses for the school system and kind of lead within as a department chair within my area. And when we would have course counts would come out, the kids would all select what courses they wanted to take. And there were courses that needed to be taught by somebody. I'd volunteer. Okay, I'll try that. I'll expand. My favorite course that I taught was architectural drawing and engineering. Loved that. And I did not go into it with a background, but I quickly learned that if you're passionate about what you're doing and you have a love of learning, that you can learn those skills. And so it just kind of all evolved. And through that leadership experience, mentoring new teachers, doing all kinds of things, I realized that I had something to give, and I was interested at that point in kind of combining that public relations, that business background with education. And I'm really glad I did.
That's outstanding. So I think a good lesson there for anyone listening is getting into something. There's so many spider webs off that, right? You just need to find the opportunities, make yourself available, kind of jump in feet first, and you never know where it's going to take you. And reoccurring theme on the podcast, I mean, most people are doing something other than what they initially went to school for, yours truly included. So let's talk about your actual role. So you mentioned you're the supervisor of the program there. So walk us through what that actually means. Are you dealing mostly with other staff members? Are you interacting with students more? How many meetings are you having versus other things? Walk us through the nitty gritty of it, if you can, Kristine.
Okay. Well, every day is different, and that's kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
But it's also, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of responsibilities. I'm kind of the liaison between the State Department, the Maryland State Department of Education, for career and technical education. I write a lot of grants so that we can fund all the equipment needs that we need to be able to increase opportunities for students. So some of the programs that I oversee, culinary, agriculture, dental and nursing and physical rehab, to business ed, computer science, it's the woodworking, it's the gamut. So I learn a lot all the time by working with business folks to determine what kind of industry supports do we need, what are we not teaching our students that is needed in our local workforce in terms of skills, and also what equipment do we need to train them on so that they'll be prepared to enter the workforce. So that part is really fun because all of the just the coordination of the grants and the requests and ensuring that we're getting what's best for our kids. That's probably, I guess, about 20 or 30% of my job. Working with the public is probably another 20% because we do a lot of presentations and I work with a lot of industry folks. And one area that we oversee is work-based learning. And that's where we're trying to get students out into jobs, whether it's internships, work study, or in the last 5 or 6 years, we've been focused on youth apprenticeships, which is a more formalized version of work study, but we're coordinating with the Department of Labor. So students, when they finish their apprenticeships, and again, it's in any area you can imagine. We have kids that are working with our county and a number of different positions with the city, with in childcare, preschool, running a preschool, working in manufacturing, working in construction and automotive. So we are covering many, many industries, getting kids again out there to work and experience what it's like. And what is unique about apprenticeship is the idea is that if it's a good fit for the employer and the student, that they will potentially hire them when the student graduates. And in many, many cases, students have gotten jobs, our local hospital or again, any of these companies. And then those companies are paying their way to continue their education. So again, no career. I mean, I feel like all careers do in some way continue education, but they're doing it in a very economical way. And that's, they're working their way through school, but they're getting a lot of support and mentorship from their companies. So that's a really exciting aspect. Let's see, I talked about grants and I talked about working with businesses. Teachers, we provide instructional support and just support, content support. We are able to send teachers to professional developments for their industry. And so we coordinate all of that. In our school system, we have about 48,000 students, and we have about 250 people that fall under the CTE umbrella. They're either CTE teachers, or we also have what's called career coaches. And they're in each of our middle and high schools to also help guide students through career awareness, career exploration, and then hopefully to help connect them with positions as well. So that's another component. And then lastly, I think is all those other duties as assigned, where you do a lot of report writing, progress reports, presentations to the Board of Education and the State Board of Education. So it's really a great job.
Excellent. I love the detailed background. I've got a couple questions here that I'm going to be going all over the place, Kristine. So you gotta take the path with me if you can.
Okay.
So one of the common themes of guests so far is, hey, I thought I wanted to do this. I have a passion for it. I started doing it. I realized this is not for me, right? And a lot of times, it's come up senior year in college and they started doing something like, I'm out of here, right? So how does it work with students? So I'm assuming students have a general interest in something, but sometimes when you do it, it's not what you envision it to be. Do they have the ability to work with someone, maybe the counselor you talk to kind of transition to something else that might be ancillary related, still hits those kind of peak things, but it's a different job? How does that transfer kind of work?
Absolutely. So we always consider that a win, because if a student finds out what they don't want to do before they've maybe gone on to post-secondary education, spent a lot of money, then that's a win for both the student, the parent, everybody. And that's one of the reasons why we really promote work-based learning. When you think about it in an education background, you do student teaching. You first get out there and you try it. And what a lot of colleges are now doing are getting those student teachers out before they actually start their student teaching. They get them out in the freshman or sophomore year to visit classrooms and really see, is this for me? Can I stand in front of a class and do this? Because it's not the same as being a student when you have to do all that preparation. And it's the same way with work-based learning, getting students out to try it out, see if it's for them. And if it doesn't work, we also have work-based learning coordinators that will help students find something in another career pathway that they find is more suited for them. So it's definitely, again, with the high cost of education and just so many options out there, that if a student says, no, this isn't for me, but I'd like to try this, we are there to support them, to get them in whatever direction, is best for them.
Very good. Thank you for that. And then for talking to high school kids now, right? So your day to day, right? This is what you're building everything around. But those that maybe we'll focus this on the education field more than anything else. But say we're giving advice to high school kids now who think they want to go into education. Again, most of them are probably thinking teacher, but maybe kind of speak to those who they want to do something in education. They don't know what that is. Maybe they know they don't want to be a teacher. They don't like speaking publicly. They don't like, dealing with kids, right? Some people don't like dealing with kids. What advice might you offer them to help them explore what that field, or like certain things that they would probably be useful for them to kind of navigate, hey, this part of education I might want to go into versus this? Terrible way to ask you a question, Kristine, but hopefully you got what
No,
I
I get it. So, it's interesting you say that about liking kids, because we have had some teachers in the past that you kind of wonder, do you even like kids? And you wonder, how did you get in this profession? Because that's a key element that is necessary. But I like to think that a lot of our programs really help students to make that decision. So, for instance, we have a child development program in the majority of our high schools. And we actually have in many of the high schools a pre-K class that meets in the high schools. And our high school students are able to work towards what's called a Child Development Associate certification. And they get that by starting with course 1 all the way through course 4, going in and working in small groups with children. And so you see, do I like working with 4 and 5-year-olds? And then they have opportunities as in their 3rd and 4th course to go up to local elementary schools. And again, do I prefer 4th or 5th grade? Would I instead want to look at secondary, or is this not for me? So there's our internship opportunities if you don't participate in the child development class. But if you do participate in that, there are infinite number of opportunities to kind of try out all grade levels. So that's really fun. And just, more than just fun, I think it's educational, and it helps people affirm or not affirm that that's the path for them. We also have what's called the Teaching Academy of Maryland at our Career and Tech Center. And that's focused more on those secondary students, the students that are really interested in being a secondary teacher, which is more content specific. And again, that program of study concludes with a semester-long internship where they are actually in a secondary classroom. In many cases, if they're a high school student and they're interning in a high school, they're with their peers, and they're actually, by the end of the experience, responsible for developing lesson plans and teaching their lessons, but they're there with the guidance of whoever the classroom teacher is. So, and we have those same kind of experiences within many of our programs of study, but education is certainly one that we as a school system are able to easily accommodate those students because we have the schools available to them.
And what if someone's listening to this that maybe doesn't have those opportunities, right? They're at an underprivileged school, they're maybe rural, and they don't have those. Any advice you might be able to offer those? Be like, hey, you know what? If you do these couple things, you might have a better idea whether that might be right for you. Is there anything you could think of off the top of your head?
I recommend that students then try to volunteer. Try to find experiences where you can volunteer, or if you're old enough, get a job in that field. Just, after school, over the summer, just to see if that's a good fit for you. I think trying it before you jump into it is advice that I would give to anyone.
Excellent.
And you know what you mentioned, sorry to jump in, but
no.
when you mentioned there are other opportunities, I think of my own three sons, and they were very outdoor oriented, and they taught at summer camps. They taught at the Y rock climbing on the rock climbing wall. They taught swimming and canoeing and those kind of things. So they were able to take their interests and get jobs that match their interest, but also enabled them in all three cases to say, you know what, I'm not a teacher. I don't want to do that. So again, whether it's the outcome you think or not, try to combine what you are interested in a couple of different facets so that you can experience multiple pathways.
I think it's great advice. Great advice. Again, it's a lot of these things are about doing and trying to figure that stuff out and find ways to do within your realm, right? So I think the camp counselor is a perfect example of doing that. How about let's transition a little bit to those maybe new in the workforce, coming out, trying to get their very first job in the education system. Maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's, hey, I want to do what you're hiring for, right? And be involved in that side of things. This is probably more generic advice, but what type of things should people be mindful of when they are looking for their first job? And this could be interviewing skills. It could be experience to really focus on before. Kind of the world is your oyster on this one, Kristine.
Right. So we have a lot of great business partners, including our local workforce development board that provides tremendous resources for folks that are, as adults, unsure what they want to do and what they're good at. And those kind of places will offer all of the tools and inventories to kind of help narrow a focus. So I first would suggest taking advantage of whatever resources are available in people's communities that can help kind of narrow their focus. And then again, look for opportunities to volunteer or get your foot in the door, go to networking events, meet people. I found, especially when I was working on my doctorate, that when I would reach out to people and say, I really want to learn more about what you do, or I want to learn more about the study that you participated in. People love to talk about what they do, right? I'm loving this. So reach out to people and say, I'd like to pick your brain. I'd like to, tell me about what you do. And what do you like about it? And what do you not like about it? Can I come in and shadow you for a day? All of those kind of experiences, I think, help. But also, it's really important to develop your network. And that's a lesson as a mom that I really shared with my kids was when I have friends coming over to our house, don't just disappear. Get out there and shake their hands and talk to them like an adult, like that you will soon be, because you never know, what connections people have and how it may be able to help you if they get to know you as a professional. And so developing your network is really key, I think, to especially finding that first job or that first internship where you're brand new. So when somebody looks at your application, you don't have any experience yet. So you really need to make sure that you're building experiences any way you can.
It's the age-old thing. How do you get the experience without the experience when you need experience? So I think the networking one is a key tip. I find it to be more important now than it was, say, even 10, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a great tip for anyone listening out there. And then just volunteering. I think it's another one. People do love to talk about themselves, by the way. It's amazing. So I had an email chain with someone just this afternoon, and I go, why don't you just email and ask? And my worst they could do is say no. But I was having a conversation literally yesterday about this. People love to talk about themselves and tell you what they do. So two outstanding pieces of advice that everyone should definitely take advantage of. I want to shift gears a little bit, Kristine, if I can, about misconceptions in the education industry. And I'll extend this a little bit to public schools if you want. You don't have to address public schools specifically, but what are some of those biggest misconceptions about a career in education or in public schools?
Okay. Well, that's a really good one, because I think that perceptions for a long time, maybe not as much now, but it's a great job. You get the summers off, and you get spring break, and you get Christmas. And people don't realize that you have to continue your education. There is a certain amount of time that you have to get your master's degree, or at least that's how it works here. So you're continuing your education. You're not just teaching your classroom. You also have responsibilities data-wise to maintain data, responsibilities to reach out to parents of struggling students, to perhaps tutor. There's a lot more to it. And you're going to find that you're really good teachers, those teachers that really make an impact, just also just have, I can't even describe it. Like, they just care about their kids. They make a connection. And so it's not just standing in front of a classroom and lecturing, because we would lose our kids today. Our kids today are digital natives, right? You have to keep it hopping, you have to keep it interesting, and you have to keep them engaged. So there's a lot more to it than maybe even when we were in school. Well, I'm much older than you, I'm sure, but back in the day, there wasn't all this engagement. There was a lot of read the book and answer the questions in the back of the book or answer the worksheet. And now it's all utilizing technology and all of these quiz games that are actually educational. You're assessing student learning, but to the kids, they think it's a game. So you kind of have to pull a whole lot of tricks out of your toolbox and keep kids motivated and keep them interested. And I think that's probably the biggest misperception. The other thing is, I tell our new teachers, your first or second year, don't expect to be out the door, a half an hour after the bell rings. You're putting a lot of time into it to just develop your repertoire, to tweak your skills, and again, just learning the tricks of the trade. So, yeah, I think that's probably, those people that think it's easy, you got another thing coming.
It's almost like a real job. What are we talking about here?
Exactly.
To your point of kids now today being digital natives and kind of the learning curve and the adaptability of teachers nowadays, this could be completely anecdotal, and that's fine. But are you finding that the first and second year teachers coming out now, they're learning some of these new technologies when they're in college, or are they more adapting them because they're peers and they're figuring out in like message groups or something like this, that like, where are we finding that the higher education is actually filtering these into their lesson plans, and new teachers are coming out with this already kind of in mind?
So my answer is, it depends. So, because our younger teachers, they are more technologically literate than we were. And so for some folks, like when they come to us in our comprehensive schools and we have 3D printers and wasers and lasers and all this really cool equipment, but it's all related to, you have to program it on the computer first. Some people just have those skills and they are able to run with it. But the other side of that is, in my content area, people at our Career and Tech Center don't necessarily have a teaching background. They can come in with content knowledge. Maybe they've worked in the automotive industry for 10 years and they decide they want to do something different and they come into teaching, or in the culinary field or nursing. The majority of those teachers in those very specific content areas come to us from the workforce. So in those cases, they know content, but we have to teach them kind of pedagogy, how to write a lesson plan, how to keep, students interested. These are some of the Kahoots or the, whatever the software that we utilize or the applications to keep kids engaged. So it depends. It depends on where they're coming from. Now, in the core 4, the English, math, science, and social studies, that's a really interesting question. And I'm going to go ask some of my colleagues that if they have seen more preparation in technology, because I don't know what it's like in their areas, but I do know in mine, it's 2 very different groups of students coming in.
Yeah. And the reason I love the example, I'm well versed in Kahoot with the kids as well. So they love it. The reason I'm asking is, I just go back and I'm thinking about college professors, and they're probably not digital natives, right? So they're adapting to everything, and a lot of times they're slower to change than everything else because they've got their class, they've got their plans, and it's harder to adapt. And they've been out of the workforce or out of that field for a while. So it just got me thinking about whether that's trickling down as maybe fast as it should. All right, Kristine, how about something about your industry that you wish you knew sooner?
Ooh, that I wish I knew sooner. Ooh, gosh. Well, I don't know that I can pinpoint any one thing because education is changing so rapidly and it's evolving. And certainly when I started, I didn't think that technology would be so ingrained in everything that we do. I remember when I was at the middle school and they were literally just starting to have computers at every teacher's desk. And it was like reminders to check your email at least twice a day. And I mean, my gosh, now we can't live without being in front of a screen, it seems like. So it has evolved so tremendously. When I first started teaching, we still used those overhead projectors. And I mean, I even saw some evidence of some of the mimeographs. I don't know if you remember those.
I do.
Now, I didn't use any of those, but there were some old worksheets left behind in the classroom that I first taught in. So that whole thing has changed tremendously. And so I guess maybe the answer to the question is what I didn't know would be how much it would change. But that's kind of the world we live in.
It is, and it's going to go faster too. So it's good to forget. I'm going to ask you a two-part question. What is the most challenging part of your career? And the backside of that is, what is the most rewarding part of your career?
Well, I'm going
Which
to
you may have answered at the very beginning, but I'm going to tee you up again.
Yeah, well, I'll answer that first because that's the easiest, and that is when you see students that you taught. Now, I started at the middle school, then I taught at the high school, and then now I'm here at central office, and we're hiring students that I taught back in middle and high school, and I'm able to go out and see them in their classrooms and see them excel. That's incredibly rewarding. Or to be able to, just because I still live in the same community, to be able to see them and interact with them in many different areas as truly young professionals, in some cases not quite so young. Some of the kids I taught are probably in their upper 30s now, right? So, but just to really see the maturity and the success and to know in like some small way I could have had a part in that, that's very rewarding. Now, the most challenging is, so here in Maryland, we have what's called the Maryland Blueprint, and it's legislation that is revolutionizing education. It's incredible, but there's a lot of unfunded mandates. So the budget piece, I think, is very challenging. It's challenging when, as a school system, because we don't have enough money to meet some of our basic needs, that we have to increase class sizes. And I am thankful that I am not a Board of Education member or on the superintendent's cabinet because I don't have to make those decisions. But it's challenging to see that, to hear teachers' frustrations with having a large number of kids in your classes and knowing that you could do more with them if you had less kids. So those are there are some setbacks. Likewise, sometimes you see that programs that we've helped to develop in schools maybe aren't as successful as we had hoped. And so, again, because of cutbacks, principals have to make tough decisions about which classes are able to staff for the next year. And when you see programs that you really think will benefit kids that have to be pulled, that's challenging because we develop really strong relationships with our teachers as well. And so we want to see them feel successful and they feel passionate about what they do. And so when those kind of things happen, it's tough for all of us.
Yeah. Does the funding ever, I look at it almost like civil liberties. Once you lose it, it's not coming back. Does the funding ever go up? Or once it gets stripped down? Does that budget always kind of go down? That's your new baseline. How does that typically work?
So, what's interesting about being in a central office position now for 16 years is I've seen the years where there was no raises, no nothing. Everybody, everything's pulled. Then it gradually goes up. So, kind of went from this and up, and now this again. And I'm hopeful that it will go up again.
Excellent. And then just one last question on your previous answer. You said you mentioned that you mentioned that you taught high school and middle school. Which did you like better?
I think I personally do better in high school.
Okay.
Because I love middle school kids, but there's a lot of hormonal things going on in middle school. And I think in high school, that's kind of settled out a little bit. And you're not dealing so much with things that you can't control. Like, people being so upset because of someone saying something about what they were wearing or those kind of things. How can you teach a student who is so upset about because people are making fun of them? Or just those kind of things really bothered me. So it might sound strange, but for that reason, I really liked high school the best.
That's a great answer. So, Kristine, someone wants to work in the education industry, regardless if that's a teacher, business side of things. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the questions. Is there anything that is really important for students to know that maybe I neglected to ask you today?
I think just get out there and try it in whatever way you can and find a good mentor, find a teacher that really impact you and talk to them. And because again, people love to talk about what they do and people will love to help, especially teachers, I think, love to help people find their way. So find a good mentor, try as many experiences as you can while you're still in high school. And if that's what you're meant to do, I think you'll get there.
Wonderful. So last one for you. Technically not, but last one. I'm going to pull education off the board. I'm taking PR because you did that too. So let's just take away communications there. You have to choose a different career. Which are you going to choose and why?
If I had to choose a different career, wow. What's interesting today is that there's so many careers that oftentimes it's like when you look in a course catalog for a college and you're like, oh, I would have taken that and that and that and that. What would I have done? I guess I kind of think that my organizational skills have been what I've honed more in the last couple of years, and as well as working with a wide range of people. So it might have been something related to public relations where I'm interacting with a lot of folks, but with a purpose. So I don't know what that could have been.
Political strategist, maybe?
Oh, I don't know if I want to go there.
All right. Very good. So, Kristine, pleasure having you today. Thank you so much. If someone wants to reach out, ask you a question, find out more about your program, what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you or find you?
Sure. So my email is Kristine with a K, Kristine .Pearl @fcps.org for Frederick County Public Schools. And that's the best way. Like I said, I'm on the computer almost all day, so or at least have access to it. So I'd be happy to respond.
Perfect. We'll throw that in the show notes for anyone that may have missed that, don't want to rewind it here, so you can pop on down there, find out more. We're also linked to CTE down there as well. So Dr. Kristine Pearl, everyone, to find out more about Dr. Pearl and the CTE, I'm going to say I can't talk. Technical. I was going to say technological, and I'm like, that's not right. Technical. So we'll call it CTE. So find out more about Dr. Pearl and the CTE. Check out the show description. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to unbox your career with us, we'd love to have you. Please visit unboxingcareerspodcast.com to find out more. And until next time, be kind to one another.
Unboxing careers.